Okay, it's 6:30. I know that we're just waiting for Will to give us the Will. Are we good? Barry, if you're
You're
okay,
good.
um, we'll just jump right in. Good evening, everybody. It's really good to see you. Oh my goodness, it's Scott Falk. I'm so happy to see you, Scott. Long time no see. My name is Tricia Shimamura. I represent half of the Parks and Waterfront Committee leadership team, along with my colleague, Barry Schneider. And we are going to jump right in. Before we start, I wanted to just mention you're going to see us be a little more prompt and try to move things along just a little quicker tonight. And that's actually my fault. I am going to unfortunately have to remove myself at 7:40 due to another engagement, and I deeply apologize. So we're trying to move a little quickly just so that I can participate in all of this. But if we do run over, then I'm sure Barry can continue, and Will be there to support him. So I apologize if we're being sticklers a little bit more on time. We're just trying to move things along as best we can while doing justice to each topic. So thank you so much for being here, everybody. And we'll jump in right with our first presenter, NYC EDC, which is a joint issue talking about 197A phase 2B with the 197A committee.
Okay, Will Fisher, you can unmute. And just so everybody knows, you are all muted and you're not able to unmute yourself. You're going to want to find the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen under reactions, or if you're on a tablet or iPhone, under more on your screen. And if you're calling in from your phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. And whenever the co-chairs call on you, just be ready for confirming and muting on your screen. Will, go ahead.
Great, Will, you're a real professional at that by now, huh? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Will, Barry, Tricia, members of the committee and public, nice to see everybody again. Will Fisher here with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I'm joined here by a few colleagues, including Evie McEvely and Catherine Probilski from the New York City Economic Development Corporation as well, from the Capital team. And we also have colleagues from the Parks Department here. I know George Bloomer is here, and I think Michael Bradley may be joining a little while later. So we are here to give you a very exciting progress update on the projects East Midtown Greenway and Andrew Haswell Green Phase 2B. We are, like we've discussed several times before, obviously it's very exciting and rare to have a new park built in New York City. So we're very glad to be constructing the East Midtown Greenway, which will stretch from 53rd Street to the north into Community Board 8 beneath the Queensboro Bridge and connect to Andrew Haswell Green and the Esplanade from there. We have a few design updates, or excuse me, a few construction updates to share with you regarding the project as a whole. And then I know that last time we spoke about with the committee, trying to get a little bit more detail about what the connection beneath the heliport structure would look like from a pedestrian and bike point of view. So we have a few slides to talk about that in terms of lighting, safety, and what you'll see down there. Anyway, nice to see everybody. I'm going to pass it to the experts here, so we will take it from here. But thank you again for joining us. I think we have about 20 slides, and then we'll be glad to take questions. Thanks.
Evie, you can unmute.
Hey. Hi, everyone. My name is Evie McEvely. I'm the Vice President in the Capital Program. I'm one of the project managers on EDC's side. So I will take us through the presentation with questions, I guess, at the end. So jumping right into it, just to provide context for those that are new to the project, the East Midtown Greenway and Andrew Haswell Green 2B are part of a larger project, which is the East Midtown Waterfront Esplanade, which stretches from 38th Street all the way up to 62nd Street. So again, we're focused starting at 53rd Street up to 62nd Street today, which is the combination of East Midtown Greenway and Andrew Haswell Green 2B. They were initially two projects, so we have a separate designer for each, and we've since combined efforts, moving into construction, and the two design teams, we all work together closely on a regular basis. And here is a site plan of the project. So I guess I would, just to orient you, north is to the right of the screen. And here, this is Seventh Place South that goes into York Avenue. The entrance to Andrew Haswell Green is outlined in green. This is the 60th Street ramp that connects at York Avenue, and it takes you into the site where you go down past the ACOG pavilion and into 2B. And I'll just go south from there, where you would be able to walk through the Alice ACOG pavilion into this transition area that then connects to East Midtown Greenway, which is an esplanade that is outboard in the middle of the East River, about 40 feet wide. And that goes down all the way to 53rd Street. And it expands a little more at the bottom. So it's a gathering space for educational opportunities. And then you can connect back by going over this pedestrian bridge that goes over the FDR that lands in Clara Coffee Park, which is labeled as Sutton Place Park here. And that takes you to 54th Street. Just wanted to show you the overall schedule. I won't go through all of the bullets. I'll just go through the highlighted ones, which are the ones in your community board district. So the 60th Street ramp, we started repairs last fall, and those are complete now. We did the critical structural repairs. So the ramp can now be used for construction vehicle access and staging for the rest of the project. The marine work for Andrew Haswell Green will start this summer and run for about a year. And then following that, we'll have the civil or the landscape work that will go from about summer of 2022 to summer of 2023. And the way that we need to stage the project, we'll be working right. You've probably seen the activity in the East River where we're putting in the caissons and the pile caps. We're starting to get ready for the 54th Street Bridge, but then we'll be building out the top side of this esplanade and then work our way back out. And so the Andrew Haswell Green landscape piece will be the last piece that we do before we demobilize. So that's just something that's necessary for the construction schedule. And so we intend for this esplanade and Andrew Haswell Green to be open in the fall of 2023. This is a close-up view of the connection between East Midtown Greenway and Andrew Haswell Green 2B. So you can see the 40-foot wide esplanade, which currently has a separated bike path and pedestrian path. When it starts to transition to this platform, it goes from a separated path to a shared use path. And that's delineated by darker hex pavers in the middle. And it kind of pixelates out to a lighter gray paver that continues through the Alice ACOG pavilion to the underneath area, and it connects further. What's not shown is that the Andrew Haswell Green paving will resemble this so that it is a continuous visual all the way north. Here's some photos of the structure. We know it's not open to the public, so you might not be aware of what it looks like. We know there have been concerns that it's a dark space, but it's actually quite open and airy. It has kind of a dramatic scale to it. So this is a view looking north, and then a view looking west. So actually on all sides you have daylight. And then moving on to additional photos, these are views looking east. So they actually frame views of the bridge and the water nicely. Outboard of the columns, there's about 3 feet of space before we'll be putting in a new seat rail. This is another enlargement plan, which might be more clear in showing the improvements that we're making in the space. So the hatched area shows the new hex paving that's going in. These are the columns of the Alice ACOG pavilion. And so the bay that's to the eastern side is the side that will be accessible to the public. The area that is white is going to be Parks' interim maintenance space. So that will be closed off. And there is a fence, an 8-foot tall steel fence in between to delineate the spaces. There will be a pedestrian gate over here for parks workers. And then there's a larger sliding maintenance gate here for parks vehicles to enter into the space underneath the 60th Street ramp and into this maintenance area that will be screened off from the public path. I'll get through more detail in additional slides. This is a existing photo of the pavilion now. Right now, there are 4 really large bays that you saw the photos of before. So in addition to that, we're going to be cutting additional openings on the eastern wall. We're not allowed to do full height openings because we had to, just for structural reasons, we needed to maintain beams. So that's why we have half height openings. But this entire side will be opened up. These bays are about 13 feet wide, and the structure is about 27 to 30 feet tall. What you see in dark gray is showing that the lower half of the columns will be painted a light gray color, which I'll show you. So it'll be kind of a clean, new finish to the space that we'll be occupying. So this is the material palette, the mix of hex pavers with the shared use path delineated in the darker gray. These are what they look like. This is the 8-foot tall steel fence. There will be some privacy or visual screen over that between the public space and the interim maintenance space. Here's a photo of what the wall-mounted lights will be inside the heliport. There will be 6 new lights attached to the columns. And finally, this is the color of the gray. It's called sidewalk gray that will be on the columns, painted up to about 11 feet tall. This is a rendering coming from the south, and you can see where the separated bicycle path and pedestrian path merge onto the transition area. This is a view from the north, looking back south. And this opening is currently more inland, and we'll be moving that to the water side, to the eastern side. And we're doing the same on the southern side so that the openings line up. And that is to have a continuous path, not just for pedestrians, but this is going to be for emergency vehicles as well. This is the view at the 60th Street ramp in York Avenue. This is the REACT tram structure and the new signage for the park. This is something we know is important, and we are advancing this work early. So we're in the process of finalizing procurement of the contractor and should be able to start later this summer to install this sign. That is the end of the presentation. Sorry, I went through that quickly, but I just want to be mindful of time.
Thank you so much. Barry, I'll let you lead questions on this.
Sure. Are there questions from the public? Please raise your virtual hand. We'll recognize you and we'll call on you. May I ask you to please keep your comments to 2 minutes?
And this is just a reminder, if this is one of your first times at one of our meetings, you can find the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen under the reactions button. Or if you're on the phone, it's *9. And if you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to find the raise hand button under the participants.
Scott Baker, would you unmute him, please?
Scott?
Hi. So I have a question about the on-ramp. So basically, you know, the on-ramp at 60th Street, there's that curve in the middle of it. And I wondered if there was ever going to be a time, yeah, that's a good view of it. If at the top of this ramp here, as you go up the ramp, there's a curve and then there's a landing under the bridge going from the first bridge support, I guess, to the East River. And right now there's a bunch of work trucks there, which seem to make a staging area and are permanently parked. So I wondered if that would ever be accessible directly from that curve and the ramp, because it's only about a 5-foot difference between the top of the ramp and the landing area. And if you don't do that, then as you know, you have to go down 60th Street to York Avenue and then up that big downtown hill going back to 59th Street. So you have a big climb if you're on a bike or even on foot, I guess. So you have to go way down and way up again. If you had a way of getting off of the on-ramp off that curve, then you could get directly onto the landing and go from there to 59th Street on the dead end.
Anyone from EDC have a comment on that or a response?
Yeah, good evening, Scott. Evie, I'm not sure if there's an overhead that best shows that area. Scott, I'm where exactly was the area you're speaking of? I know that there's the curve at the.
So if you could go back to the ramp, the 60th Street ramp, yeah, right there. So the very top of that, if you look on, well, you can't see it, but if you look on the right of the very top of that ramp where your cursor is, there's actually about 5-foot vertical space between that and where the landing is for underneath the Ed Koch Bridge. Now it's hidden because of the blocks there, but it's actually there. And I actually talked to a Parks Department person at one time from my biking group he used to join. And he said it would be a lot of money, but basically it could be done, that there could be a connection made that's like, in other words, a slight uphill off of that ramp going to the landing. And then from there you can go downtown under the landing or across the landing rather to the dead end on 59th Street. And then you'd be on 59th Street. So you wouldn't have to come down this ramp and then go where the people are crossing, then go up the hill on York Avenue to go downtown. Because that uphill, riding uphill on that on a bike is actually pretty difficult because it's a very steep climb. So you could just get off the ramp and you would be at grade, but a much higher grade on 59th Street than on 60th Street.
Right. So I'm going to see perhaps somebody from either Evie or maybe if somebody from the Parks Department has an idea about that. Scott, I don't think, though, unless my team members contradict me, that we have any plans to add any additional other entrances besides this ramp to that area at this time. But
okay.
That's
right.
Suggestion then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I can add to that. I mean, if I think I understand what this is, it's at the top of the ramp to the right and then proceeding under the bridge. So whatever that is, and I have honestly never noticed it, it isn't Parks property. It may be DOT's, it may be Con Edison's.
Yeah, there's a lot of work trucks there right now.
We can certainly look at it. But as Will said, we don't have any plan, or Evie said we don't have any plans for it right now.
Okay, it would save some bike riders, including me, a huge climb up maybe 2 stories of uphill on York Avenue going from 60th to 59th.
Understood.
It's also very crowded. There's a lot of buses and trucks.
All right,
going, you know.
Michael, if you will look at it and get back to us, and then we'll have an answer for you, Scott, at our next meeting.
I will.
If an answer is available. Okay, thank you very much. The next I have Rita Popper from Community Board 8.
A few questions. I'm standing at 61st Street, between 61st and 59th Street on the east side of York Avenue, and I am faced with an enormous hill of, I have to tell you, I'm 82, and I've often wondered how I could reach Andrew Haswell Green Park if I don't go up that ramp. That ramp is a very steep ramp. How do I do it?
You can do it at 63rd Street. There's a gentle ramp over the FDR at 63rd, which leads you to the Andrew Haswell Green Park.
And second question is, have we seen this Andrew Haswell Green Park 2 yet, or is this just the original one?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Rita? I'm sorry, I don't think I got it.
You know, how many, what, I'm trying to think, what Is there seating in Andrew Haswell Green Park? Is there?
Will?
Yeah, I think Edie, are you able to comment on that, whether there's seating there?
Oh, the
Yes, there will be new benches along the sea rail here looking east. There will also be benches and seating opportunities along the central stair. And then there's more informal seating, lounging on the lawn.
right.
Is it wheelchair accessible?
Not at the 60th Street ramp, but going up into the lawn will be wheelchair accessible.
But accessing the park from 63rd Street is accessible, and that will lead you to the park.
No, I'm just curious. If I'm at a doctor's office at 61st Street, I'm always thinking I would like to go up that ramp, but my feet won't take me. Or else, because it's a very steep ramp at 60th Street. And I was just curious as to what's up there. I know the Alcock Pavilion, but I was just curious. I could see from this, am I looking at all of Andrew Haswell Green Park in this slide?
Yes, I would say so.
What you're looking at is Andrew Haswell Green Phase 2B.
Where is Phase 2B?
What you're looking at.
Okay, where is Phase 1?
That's Alice Aycock.
Oh, okay.
This is George Bloomer. Slight correction. Phase 2A was the top of the Alice Aycock. Phase 1 was quite a while ago, and that was the dog run.
Oh, right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
The dog run.
Oh, the dog run.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Judy
Barry, could I
Stein?
just add also?
Please.
There will be another ADA entrance from the south via the new 54th Street Bridge that will be built as part of the East Midtown Greenway.
Okay, thank you. Judy Schneider next.
Judy, unmute. She appears to be frozen.
Barry, you have a couple, while Judy's frozen, you have a couple of public members.
Yes,
or
I
public
see that.
members of the Public.
So Susan Price Blackwell,
Go ahead.
please unmute.
Hi, good evening. I have a couple of questions having to do with the structure under Alice Aycock. I'm curious if there are any plans for security cameras to be attached to those columns, because security is a big issue on the Esplanade. So I'm interested in that, and I'm interested to know if the coating on those columns is going to be graffiti resistant, because that's become a problem as well. And my third concern, because I'm a gardener and I garden along the dog runs in Andrew Haswell Green, up at Alice Aycock, under the sculpture, there's no water. There's no drinking fountain. There's no water to take care of plantings. And I'm wondering if we can bring water up during the construction of 2B. And I have one other comment. Looking at the plan for 2B with these lovely grassy hills, having watched the Alice Aycock Pavilion go from being a very luxuriant green lawn to being a bare bones, hard-packed dirt playing field, basically, I am concerned about what those hills are going to look like in a couple of years, because maintenance is very, very difficult. Parks keeps getting their budget and their personnel cut, and I just wonder how it's ever going to work that way. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Susan. Yeah, so regarding the security cameras, so unfortunately we do not have security cameras as part of the scope here. We do have a significant amount of lighting beneath the heliport structure under those columns. Evie, if you wouldn't mind going back to the, I think we have 6 of those can lights, right? And then let's see.
This I'll just quickly show in the diagram, if you can see in yellow, these are the 6 lights that will be attached to the columns.
Okay, great, thank you. And then let's see, Evie, off the top of your head, the question about the graffiti or the paint and how it might be graffiti resistant or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my initial reaction is to say that it's a park standard exterior paint. So I know that was chosen, so it would be easy to maintain and keep fresh. I don't know if someone from Parks could speak to whether or not it's technically graffiti resistant. I don't believe it is, but I think Parks would know better. And then the question about the water fountain, George, I see you unmuted, if you could speak to that as well.
Up top, there are ground hydrants to in the lawn area that they can actually hook up hose into and water. And if I recall correctly, there was a drinking fountain up there, but it's been a while since I've been up there.
There is not.
Well, and there isn't. Okay, well then there isn't one. And regarding the paint, I don't know that it has any special anti-graffiti qualities. But since it's a color that we have readily available, our maintenance people will be able to address the graffiti.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Will you find the next public member of the public, please?
Yeah, Jane Judge is our next person up. Jane Judge, unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Jane Judge, there you go.
Hi, it's actually Jim Stern. I'm sitting here with Jane Judge, just so you don't think she has a very deep voice. So just to expand on Susan's question about the underneath section under the park, under the pavilion, that I'm afraid is going to be, first of all, I think this is a wonderful idea, this extension of the Greenway. I'm in no way I have nothing negative to say about it, except the underneath the pavilion is going to become a magnet for the homeless. And I cycle the entire island, on the east side, the west side, and there are no other sections where there's an overhang except on 38th Street, where there's an entrance to the Greenway going south. And that itself has become a magnet for the homeless, and it's actually putrid. I know that when I go underneath there, I have to hold my breath, and I hope that the light is green so that I can get through right away. So that's just a concern, and I'm wondering if it makes more sense to bypass the underneath section. That's one question. The other one is the other 2 questions are much quicker. Is there a plan for a ferry station anywhere along the area? I know that there's one at 34th and there's one at 90th Street, I believe. So there's a big gap. And then the last question is there any progress on the connector or the idea of a connector to the lower section by the UN area, which I understand has been stalled? That's it.
Got it. Okay. Good evening, Jim and Jane. Thanks for your question. So yeah, I'll start with the last one first. So so this project is connecting Andrew Haswell Green South to 54th Street. And as you correctly noted, there is a gap between 54th Street and I believe 41st Street. There is in the long-term plan, in the vision for a holistic connected Manhattan waterfront Greenway, obviously filling that gap between 54th and 41st Streets, but there's not funding in place right now for that project. Nonetheless, it's we hope to fulfill that someday. Regarding the beneath the structure, there are a number of sections I know on the west side bike path that go beneath the west side highway and elsewhere. So I think there is a precedent for sort of covered portions of the bike path. It is quite expensive and pretty technically difficult to do in water construction. So since we have the surface there, it's easiest and most financially prudent to go through that area. But we do have the lighting there. We do expect it to be heavily trafficked. And of course, when the Parks Department, I'll let them talk about any sort of maintenance and operations procedures, since the Parks Department will be maintaining this once we complete construction. But we do expect it to be a heavily trafficked place. Oh, I'm sorry. You did ask regarding the ferry. So unfortunately, we don't have any plans to add any additional ferry stops in this area. Like you said, the closest ones are 34th Street up in the 90s, and then there's one on Roosevelt Island across the way.
Will, I can answer that. Several years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers looked at that site, and because of the current at that location, 63rd Street particularly, a ferry was ruled out. But
Okay.
it's worth taking a second look at as we go down the line.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Will, the next public member of the public?
Yeah, we have Frederica. Frederica, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm also concerned with providing water to the plantings, and I'm wondering if the plan includes irrigation for the landscaping that's proposed. That's question number one. And question number two, for Alice Aycock, if there is water available up there, my question is, why hasn't it been accessed and made available for the plantings that are existing? Maybe that may be beyond the scope of this meeting tonight, but I think it's a valid question. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Good evening. So I don't know if Evie or George or Michael, if you'd like to take the question regarding both water as part of this phase and part of the original phase up top.
Sure, I can start for this phase. Irrigation, we have that in for the initial 1-year establishment period. And then it is anticipated by that time that the plants will be established and parks will resume with their maintenance regimen.
Can we actually, I apologize, but just to follow up on this, I'm just a little confused. So the plantings and everything there, you have a plan for the first year to have it irrigated somehow, I'm guessing by mobile water truck or something like that. And then what happens afterwards?
There's an actual irrigation system that will be put into place, but it's the kind of system that is anticipated to only be there for a year. And from that point on, it would be all maintained by park staff. I guess, George, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I really can't answer to the operations point. If Will's here, maybe he can answer that question. But I don't know why it's not been available to the public. You do need a special adapter, I believe, for the ground hydrant. And that's it. I don't know that, what else was the question? I'm sorry.
So let me jump in. I think there's some confusion. There is water service,
yes,
to be provided in 2B. And what Evie was parsing was that EDC contract provides for a year of maintenance from completion, and after that, Parks maintenance operations staff will water the plantings as needed using the water service that will be provided.
Oh, fine.
I don't know about the Alice Aycock issue.
Barry, I just want to say that, I will jump in just for a second here. This is a big problem on the top of Alice Aycock Pavilion, and I appreciate that I understand and recognize that this is not 2B. But I do think that I completely agree with our public members who have spoken on this. It seems that if there is a water source there, and if we already have it, but it's a question of the proper hookups or the proper like minor infrastructure place in order to get that, like that we should be doing. I would be
Tricia, you're breaking up.
everybody else questions about 2B piece, but let's not move on before we address that piece. Sorry.
Is that it? Sorry, let's call on the next public member. Judy Schneider, her computer seems to be dead, so she's going to speak from here.
Yes, I'm sorry. I ordered a new computer today, and it just died dead now. I have several questions. While we're on the water, George, my question is if there's a Bruckner box or something like that in the new green space planned in 2B, can that, and this is maybe a question for Will and Evie, can that water source be brought up via pipe to Alice Aycock Pavilion up above? So that's not something we've talked about before, but perhaps it's something you could look into, because we do need a water source. And George, I'm not aware of any water source at all being at the Alice Aycock Pavilion. So if we could connect the two, I know it's not in the budget. I think that's what everybody's asking for. I have another question about the signage. If we can go back to that, could you be more specific about what kind of signage you're putting up, what it's made out of, what the color is, what the height will be, etc.? And my third question is one that I brought up whenever we've had a meeting. The openings under the enclosed space, will there be any benches put in there for people to sit and view the water when they're walking or want to park their bike?
Yes. Are you able to speak to the sign materiality?
Yeah, I can speak to the sign. So I pulled this back up. Andrew Haswell green sign, I assume, is the one that you're speaking about. So these are going to be metal letters. They're about 1 foot tall, and they will be mounted to the beam of this tram structure.
Great. And then I think regarding both the interesting request for the water service up to Alice Aycock, as well as the benches between the openings beneath the pavilion, I think it's something that, like Judy, you correctly noted, we will have to look into see if there's any space in the project for those kinds of things, as well as sort of how that would impact the design review that we had to go through to get to the project. But I think I definitely want to acknowledge that, we hear that loud and clear from the community. And between EDC as part of the scope of the current project and the Parks Department, we can certainly take a look at both of those things.
I have one more comment about the water. I know for sure the ground hydrants were installed and there's a pipe going up from down below where the water source comes. If I recall correctly, and it's been a number of years, I misspoke earlier. I believe the connection was never finalized from the last contract when the contractor stopped working, essentially. And we're relocating the RPZ where the water source is under the ramp. So at that time, that connection should be completed. We can go out there and verify that, though.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi there. This is Grace speaking. Just want to add to George that there is indeed a drinking fountain fixture that installed on the promenade on the water side of under the Alice Aycock, and it seems that it probably not operational because, as George saying, that the water is not connected, but we'll make sure that will be connected.
No, thank you. Will, do we have any more members of the public?
Jordan Woke.
Okay, Jordan?
Good evening. Raise my perpetual concern as a person who uses Carl Schurz Park. I am concerned about completing the loop on the east side of Manhattan. Right now, there is an awful lot of mixing of pedestrians and bicycles on the promenade. And one of the unusual things about the promenade is that they're east to west pedestrian movement, as opposed to most sections where it's parallel to the movement of the cyclists. Just long term, I worry about the effect of maybe multiplying the number of bicycles per unit time by some substantial number. So just putting in my 2 cents as a warning about the future, something that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Now we'll go to Scott Falk. Is that correct, Will?
You have, yeah, that works.
Hello. I haven't spoken as a public member of the committee in such a long time.
Well.
I actually wanted to say, first of all, I wanted to say I'm very grateful to see that the signage facing, the entrance at 60th Street has made it, to the final plans. That was one of the things that I was always delighted by in this project. So thank you for that. I look forward to actually seeing that up there. And then I was going to say, as of the 2015 meetings when we were getting the presentations about phase 2A, there were going to be 3 ground hookups for water on the top. So hopefully that's what's going to be connected and finalized and available, going forward.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome. Well, good to see you again.
Thanks.
Next, who do we have besides, is that the last member of the so-called public?
Sure, yeah, and then you have Lowell, Barton, Craig, and Tricia.
Okay, and now to order, please.
Lowell, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I spoke before, the same question. With the EDC, are they using American-made materials? Is that a policy of them to buy American? I see a big trend in parks where they've been importing stone from China, Vietnam. Battery Park right now, they spent $1 million on a playground equipment from Germany. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. I was just hoping that with economic development, it starts at home and that we would buy American. Is that a policy?
Yeah, so Evie and Catherine, can you speak to material sourcing?
Sure, I will say this is not a Buy American mandated project, which is typical for federally funded projects. So we are, if we need to source from overseas for just for the sake of being able to procure materials on it as needed to complete the project.
What would you say the percentage of foreign material is there out of country? Guardrails, benches?
Well, I mean, honestly,
Get back to me on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lowell. Craig?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just want to follow up on Rita's question regarding ADA access. And I understand that there is an entrance at 63rd Street, but that's still very different than direct access at 60th Street where the entrance is going to be. And especially for anyone who would otherwise have to go down York Avenue, cross over the entrance exit to the FDR Drive in order to access that pedestrian bridge. I guess my question is, what is the ADA, specific ADA requirement that would allow the entrance, the one that's right now being displayed, given that it's being improved from its current condition, to not be required to be upgraded to ADA accessible guidelines? Because I was, and I may, I don't pretend to be an expert on ADA, but I thought that whenever you do a major upgrade to a facility, you need to transition it to become accessible at that location. So I just want to make sure that we're doing this in the proper way and that we're not going to have an issue later on. So if you could reference specifically where in the act there would be this exception, if you will, to allow this part to move forward without this specific entrance being accessible, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Craig. And yeah, so great question, great concern there. I think, and we've, just want to highlight, like Michael mentioned before, Craig, I do think, and I'll let the team chime in here in a second, I do think it is a difference between sort of the sort of new construction versus, the very, very minor modifications we're making to an existing. Obviously, this was a repurposed highway ramp, but down at 54th Street, the new pedestrian bridge that we're constructing is going to be ADA accessible. And we've met, I think, I forget how many times, but we've met somewhat regularly with the mayor's office for people with disabilities to make sure that things both comply to the letter and the spirit of ADA. But Evie and Catherine, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to mention there.
Sure, I'll say unfortunately we can't, but just because we are working with existing structure and we have a limited length that we're working with, we can extend it, which would allow us to have the more gradual slope or incline needed for it to be technically ADA compliant. So that's the limitation.
So when that's the case, does the law provide any other remedies, or does it say you are able to forego doing an upgrade to make it ADA accessible if it's physically not possible or not feasible from an engineering standpoint?
I mean, I don't know the ADA Act in and out, but I know that we're not doing anything that we're getting a waiver going outside. It's not like a loophole that we're getting through by not providing it. We felt like with the 63rd Street ramp, with the 54th Street pedestrian bridge further south, there was enough, there was ADA access for the site.
Okay, I guess then if you can produce some documentation from the office of whatever the office is, I guess, office of for persons with disabilities, or whoever it is that can just be able to provide that documentation that this is this passes muster, then I think I'll feel better about it.
Yes, we do. We had meetings with the commissioner, and we do have their approval on the design of the project.
Could you forward that information to the community board, please?
Sure, of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Martha Tamayo, and then Tricia.
Thank you. First of all, I had to correct you about the regulations of the ADA. Right now, DOB, which is different from park, new entrants that have access must be in compliance with the ADA. That is the new rules. They used to have the regulation is as long as you provide one entrance, it will be fine. But in this case, it's not anymore. That's the case. One, two. DOV has been enforcing very careful all the ADA regulations because the federal government put a lawsuit against the Department of Buildings because they didn't enforce. Prior to that lawsuit, we used to go to the commissioner and ask for a waiver for most of our projects, and most of the time they granted because it complicates the functionality of the space. It's very small spaces. But since there is this lawsuit against the Department of Buildings, which will apply, I think, for the Park Department too, that you are not in compliance with the with the ADA compliance. So the direction is, once you touch it, you must be in compliance, regardless it's new or is existing. In this case, it's existing, and you touch it, and you gotta put it in the ADA compliance. That is the regulations presently about the American Disability Act. In part, probably you're right, but I don't think so. The American Disability Act is more strict now, and it has to be make available for all people to have access for any entrance, except obviously if there is a secondary means of egress or a second different access that the public that do not have opportunity to go through. So this is a clarification of your point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margo. Closing out this discussion, Tricia Shimamura.
Yeah, oh, unless George wants to say something in response to that. I see that from the Parks Department.
I do. It wasn't in response to that particularly. I just want to tell you that I did just check my photographs of the construction from 2A, and there is a drinking fountain up there, although it may have the same water supply issues as the ground hydrant. It's on the northeast side of the seating area.
Thank you very much, George.
Barry,
Yes.
let me also add to Will's response and Evie's response about ADA access. The Parks Department also has an accessibility coordinator who reviewed this design and was involved in the meetings with Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities. They have both agreed that this design is compliant. So we're happy to provide that documentation, but what Mr. Tamayo said is not correct.
Thank you, Michael. We'd like to have that information. Okay, now to Tricia.
Yeah, so I just two very quick points. One is that I just want to say that I'm very proud of this committee because I think the questions that they were asking were really strong, and I do think that there's I think that what Craig is getting at is not just if we're compliant, but if we are truly making this better for the community in terms of access. And it is, it's a question maybe for another time, but something that still should be considered. And I would love to see if you have some sort of documentation from the ADA advocates and agencies related to ADA who are looking at this. I think it would be good to see that, but I would love to see us have a longer conversation about it. I think that Lowell's point about buy American made, Lowell, I would love to have this as an agenda item in the future, just in general for our parks projects, which I think is a strong policy piece, which we should cover. And then I actually want to propose a resolution. I don't want to leave this conversation, although I know it's longer than what we anticipated, without passing some sort of resolution explicitly calling for the hookups and water hookups to water out the Alice Aycock Pavilion. It is a mess without it, and we just got this space. We shouldn't treat it anything less than the precious gem that it is. So I would like to propose a resolution calling on EDC and the Parks Department in their proposal for this to create the irrigation needed to keep Alice Aycock Pavilion green.
Second. Any discussion? We're going to take a vote of the members of the committee. All in favor? I assume you're all in favor. Anyone opposing, not voting for cause, or no? Please raise your virtual hand, and will call on you.
I'm going to remove Renee's hand really quickly.
Sure.
So again, if you are not voting for cause, voting no, or abstaining, please raise your virtual hand. Otherwise, I'm going to go down the list of board members who are in attendance for the public record. So we have Tricia and Barry, Barbara Rutter, Brian Correa, Craig Lader, Felice Farber, Irma Torres, Lowell Barton, Marco Tamayo, Rita Popper, and Scott Falk. If I missed anyone, please raise your hand and I'll add you to that list. Oh, Judy Schneider as well.
He called Lowell.
So while we transition to the next topic, I just want to first apologize because it's later. Stacy, I anticipate that I will have to leave before the end of your presentation. I'm sincerely sorry. I will just also ask that Parks and EDC, since it is pertaining so closely to this, that if you can stick around, it would be good to have everybody here to have that discussion. And again, to all of you, I don't like missing meetings, particularly for the topic that's most near and dear to me. So please forgive me leaving early. And with that, if we can move to Stacy and her presentation.
Go ahead, Stacy.
It's all yours, Stacy.
Thank you. Thanks, Trisha. And we'll see you. I'll see you on Saturday. All right, thanks everyone. Tonight I will be I'll talk fast so we can get through this. I will be presenting the addition of outdoor all-weather adult fitness equipment to the Esplanade, and I'm speaking on behalf of our fitness committee, Susan Blackwell, Frederica Miller, Craig Starr, and Sarah King, who are all on this call tonight. Oh, I need to show you my thing, sorry. Oh, Will, can I?
Go ahead, go ahead. You can do it now.
Okay. Okay. All right, so this is the East River Roundabout. You will recognize it by its desolate gray grass. These pictures are from December of 2020 when gyms were fully closed. People took their workouts outside and took over the playgrounds and parks. You can see You can see our climbing ropes, you can see gymnastics rings, and you can see the supporting ropes. This is dangerous. Without my arrows, you can barely see these things hanging. The sculpture is not made to withstand the added weight of humans or the wear and tear of the climbing ropes. The personal equipment was promptly removed, and thankfully have not seen it happen again. Here we have Carl Schurz Park 5 months ago. The basketball hoop is not being used for its intended purpose, although we think it can withstand this type of use. Outside of Carl Schurz, we have a trainer who brought his own fitness equipment. Behind the bench is the cart he used to wheel it in on. This is last weekend, and the only thing that has changed is that more people are exercising outside along the Esplanade. We can safely assume this will increase as the weather warms up. Last year, the fitness committee went out and spoke with the public about adding exercise equipment on the waterfront. We've got strong support from the community, both in person and online, close to 500 signatures from individuals. And with each social media post, we get more likes and followers. Jane Alexandra is a grad student at Columbia University School of Journalism who wrote an article about our petition. It's since been published on nycreopens.com, Columbia's online publication dedicated to life in and after the pandemic. We're hoping she writes a follow-up piece to keep this discussion going. When we first started exploring this idea, we didn't see outdoor fitness as a short-term trend until gyms fully reopened. We imagined it to be a long-term activity for 3 reasons. 1, geography. Many people have gym memberships near their office. If they continue to work remotely, they may no longer have a need to be in that neighborhood. Secondly, financial. People may no longer have disposable income for a gym membership or private personal trainer. And thirdly, personal choice. They like working out in the fresh air. This may be a new concept to some people, and they may never go back to indoor exercise. I think this third point is being proven, as we've seen from our most recent photos. The fitness committee then researched where this equipment could be placed on the Esplanade. So on the left, we have the work site at Andrew Haswell Green prior to staging for groundbreaking. And on the right, we have the same space with a different view set up as the staging area for construction that's currently taking place in the southern section. You saw updated photos from EDC. This area is the width to allow pedestrians and bicyclists to pass without interference, a wall of protection from FDR traffic and noise, and enough room to also allow for landscaping, structurally sound enough to carry the additional weight of the equipment. This is the architect's rendering that we saw earlier upon completion of phase 2. The yellow arrows point to 2 potential spots that could have fitness equipment added to the northern area of the park. If people are concerned that they could be losing quiet space or landscaping, Sutton Place has 5 parks for passive enjoyment. And we also know from the discussion on the water issue at Alice Aycock that keeping a grassy green lawn is a never-ending exercise in futility. The committee then put out an RFP to see what vendors would be interested in designing and installing the equipment. They narrowed it down to 4 different vendors with 4 unique layouts and concepts. The following slides are simply to show examples of different styles. And Lowell, I know that your concern is with American Made. These are just design ideas. Landscape Structures is an employee-owned company, and they do extensive work in New York City. This is Astoria Park, and the equipment is set up pretty straightforward and easily recognized as gym equipment. It's made for use by adults of all fitness levels. The next vendor is National Fitness Campaign. They create a one-size-fits-all concrete slab with a body weight circuit training system for adults of all ages and fitness levels. My Equilibria is an Italian designer that has recently been added to the approved vendor list for New York City. They currently have installations in Miami, DC, and across Europe. Their work looks more like public art at first glance, but upon closer inspection, you can see that it is circuit training equipment. Their equipment and layout can be customized to fit any space, and again, adults of all ages and fitness levels. And lastly, we present Compum. They are a Dutch firm. They have an extensive US presence, experience in New York City, and only one type of equipment, but their layout is customizable, and again, for adults of all ages and fitness levels. This is an example of current fitness equipment on the east side of Manhattan. This is Thomas Jefferson Park, which just got a brand new playground. These two squares are opposite of each other on the same side of the running track. This is another example of equipment placed in the walking corridor between apartment buildings at 113th Street. It's still unusable, and it's still usable in the snow. You can also see the sign from NYC Parks outlining the rules of use in multiple languages. The point of these two slides is that the equipment placement and layout is very flexible within tight New York City constraints, and that adding exercise equipment to existing areas is not new, except to the East Side waterfront. We've outlined the benefits of this proposal. Adding fitness equipment to the Esplanade will help bring together a fitness-minded community. We already see people walking, running, and biking, and now they can add circuit training for a full and well-rounded outdoor fitness program. Short-term benefits include getting adults out of the playgrounds and public art space and into a designated area. This is for the safety of the people exercising and those passing by. Long-term benefits mean adding a much-desired amenity on the waterfront for all to enjoy, providing free professional equipment and a meeting space for the fitness community to come together. The cost of each concept is roughly the same, the $250,000 range, and Esplanade Friends would lead the fundraising efforts for this unless an alternate plan was put into place with NYC Parks. And lastly, since phase 2 is in the earliest stages, and in what we saw in the timeline, we still have 3 years before, or 2 years before landscape, this concept could easily be added into a current design with little modification. Thank you for listening to our proposal. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you so much for keeping it very, very prompt. I appreciate it. I'm still here, which is great. Right. Do we have questions from the public?
And just a reminder, you want to find the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and hit the raise hand button, or it's *9 on the phone and *6 to unmute if you are called on.
Sure, excuse me. Let me just make a point. We want to be sure to leave plenty of time for the folks from EDC and Parks to respond.
Actually, maybe that's a good place to start. If Barbara and Felice, if you don't mind, can EDC and Parks, since this is being proposed in that same section, can you give us some reactions? Can you just talk to us a little bit about this and how and the relationship between the two?
I can speak a little bit on the fitness equipment. Locating it in the lawn area at the north end of Haswell Green, it's not conducive. The grades are too steep in that area on the lawn, even though it's a gentle slope. I think it's about 2 or 3% gradient, that the fitness equipment generally requires a level area, and that would mean a substantial putting in some retaining walls, etc., to make a level area. And this is a design commission approved plan now, and that would also have to be taken into consideration. The one location you're proposing right next to the pavilion, I don't believe there's enough training room, enough area there. Each piece has a training envelope that's required by ASTM and our safety requirements that we have to follow. So, and again, this is still, we'd have to go back to the design commission if it was entertained, but we do not think this is an appropriate place. And it's also been designed intentionally as a passive space, and this would not be consistent with that use either.
Thank you, George.
Okay, can I just ask a very quick follow-up question to this while I'm here for 2 more minutes? While we are thinking, I recognize and appreciate the Friends of the East River Esplanade's advocacy in realizing that there is a new need that may not have been the same need as before. Are there other areas as we think about the build out, particularly south, that this in a more flat area could be a possibility? Are there other areas that that could be considered to meet this kind of new need?
Well, if I could just interject, this is Steve Simon. Phase 3, which is within the pavilion structure itself, is right now basically. I mean, we have a concept plan for it, but it is yet to be designed, and that would, I think that provides a possibility to incorporate, an outdoor fitness area. We should look at that. I think, it's an interesting, it's a valid idea. Listen, we certainly have plenty of experience designing outdoor fitness areas. We have them in plenty of parks throughout the city, including Manhattan, perhaps not on the east side, and maybe this is an opportunity to add something add one of them to the east side. But I think phase 3, which at some point, I hope in the near future, is something that we're going to work with you to design once we have funding for it, is I think a potential opportunity for an outdoor fitness area. I would also like to correct the record. Nancy Prince, who is our director of design and who lives in the neighborhood, has told us that she does not support this proposal, that she did sign the petition, but with a misunderstanding. She thought she was volunteering for a volunteer planting project or something. She didn't realize that what she signed was in support of this fitness idea. For the same reasons that George has just indicated, she does not agree that the Phase 2B area is appropriate, and to suggest that the timing is right to undo a carefully done design at this stage when we're in construction is not an accurate statement to make. And I just want to make it very clear, we don't really, again, the Parks Department has plenty of experience designing outdoor fitness areas. We don't need to solicit proposals from outside vendors. That's not the way our process works. We design the fitness area, and then we put them out for bid. And if somebody wants to construct it, they would submit bids in an open process. Any contractor would be able to submit a bid. We don't pre-select them for the most part. So I just want to clear the record on those points.
Thank you very much, Steve. Very valuable information. Thank you. Now we'll go to members of the public. Will you call on the people in the order of their raising their hands, please?
Yeah, I have Frederica and then Susan. So Frederica, go ahead and unmute.
Sure, thanks very much. I didn't really understand the point about that there was a gradient level already at phase 2, because if you go back and the way it exists right now, it's perfectly flat there. So I don't see any gradient issue. It's flat, and it would be perfect for, a small area of exercise equipment. And the exercise equipment would not take up this entire space. It could only take up, a portion of it and perhaps half of it. Secondly, the concept of having a passive space here and having a lawn on a hill, I think is a really horrible idea. We touched on this before, but this lawn is not going to be able to be maintained. They've already indicated that there's no irrigation, and given the hot summers, the lawn is going to turn brown, and there's going to be weeds there, and it's going to look very unattractive. And I don't think that certainly is not a good thing. The third point I want to make is that there, of course, is no construction going on right now at phase 2B. And there certainly is enough time to redesign this. And I think it's really what many members of the public want. And I think it would be a terrific idea. And I think that this is an ideal space for it. And it can be incorporated here in a very nice way. So I hope people will be open to that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Federica. Will we unmute George Bloomer, please?
George, go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Question regarding the gradient. Yes, the park is very flat right now, but maybe it's not clear from this image. We are basically building a hillside against the existing ramp with stairs and a lawn area. So then that lawn does become at a percentage and will not be flat. I think EDC can speak to the phasing and the timing, but the plans are all already done and have been approved. And to redesign at this time, it just would delay the whole process.
Thank you, George.
Barry, I'm so sorry. Folks, I have to take my leave, but before I go, I just want to say that we really value a strong partnership between East River Friends of the East River Esplanade and the community board. It's necessary and it's needed, and I always think that the ideas that they're bringing forward are good and bringing new community members into the fold. So wherever this conversation goes tonight, I look forward to seeing you, Stacy, on Saturday, and I hope that we can continue to work towards improving and making beautiful and special the East River Esplanade. And I apologize again for leaving, but thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm asking Will to help you, Barry, how to manage questions and things like that, just in case you need it. So,
of course. Thanks very much, dear. Have a good evening. Best to all.
Bye, Tricia. Next, we have Susan. Susan, unmute.
Thank you. A couple of things. First, to Mr. Simon's point about fitness equipment under the structure under LSA. I agree that would be really good, but from what I understand, that's not going to be in the works for like another 6 or 7 years. That's a long time for people to wait. Secondly, back to the issue of the hillsides. I mean, is it a really, really big deal to go back to the design commission and propose something that would really benefit the public? And you wouldn't have to build a hillside and you wouldn't have to maintain it. I'm not an engineer, but it seems like it kind of simplifies construction. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Will? Steve, you have something to add?
Sure. No, I would just say, they're great points. And I think, it is sort of unfortunate sometimes how long things can take to get from design into construction. Some folks here might know that we were on hold for a little while as we searched for additional funding for this project. Like my colleagues from the Parks Department have said, in terms of our implementing it on the Parks Department's behalf, these design plans have been in works for a long time. And, just to go back to a couple of points that were raised, I think, there are a good number of folks here this evening who would like to see that. And Stacy and team, I can tell you all have put a lot of work into this and, would certainly value an organization like yours in my neighborhood as well to do the same. But I would say that, just as there's a robust conversation happening right here about design priorities, we also had a very similar conversation, during the original design and worked very closely in concert with the community to design what you see here before today. So in terms of not just the design commission, but also permitting, meetings with the mayor's office of people with disabilities and many, many other agency partners, construction drawings, bid documents, actually getting those contracts out. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. So it really is frankly not possible at this point within the budget we have, within the timeline we have, or within the process that we're constructing this within to add scope items at this point. But I think we all can agree that it would be great to see the phase 3 someday. And I know that we've engaged with the community board in the past together with the Parks Department on that. So obviously while this phase is set and is moving forward, there's obviously plenty of other opportunity to chime in.
Thank you,
Will. Barry and Will, let me add a little bit. what Will just said. You know, I've been involved in this project for about a decade. The design came out of a community-driven 197A process. And the community and parks were partners in this design from the very beginning. And I wasn't at the very earliest stages when the design concept was being developed, but you know, I'm sure there were multiple opportunities at that point for people to propose active recreational uses such as what's being discussed here. What Will just said is true, but the scale is really much larger than he's letting on, because this project has been in the works long enough and had enough budget issues that were we to stop it now and try and redo the design, we may end up not having enough money again to move forward. So it is not a simple or desirable thing to take a fully fledged and bid design and start peeling it apart once someone comes in with a newer idea. That said, as Steve and others said, it's absolutely a concept that Parks Department supports. This is just not the right spot for it.
Barry, may I respond?
Go ahead, please.
So thank you. And this in no way is a dig at the design or anything that anybody has been working on for 10 years. This all came about, obviously, from the pandemic, the idea that, oh my gosh, now everybody's outside. What can we do? How can we solve this problem? How can we help people and move it forward? So this is not to erase all of the hard work and all of the effort and the incredible amount of effort that you guys have put in for the past 10 plus years to get this done. So that's certainly not it. The suggestion of this spot is not because we want to undo somebody's hard work and beautiful design, or to say that that's not going to work, we could make it better. That's not what this is about at all. It really is about, hey, we could add an amenity to the Esplanade. Where can we do it? Construction's happening right here, right now. It currently looks like this. Maybe it's an easy fix. And if it's not, which to my trained eye, it's an untrained eye, it's an easy fix. But to everybody who's been working on this for 10 years, it's a hot mess. We get that. We're not pushing anybody else's work aside. So to hear Steve say that there's a possibility in another spot is great. And we are completely open to that and would love to hear your ideas, or to tell us where there's a structurally sound spot or a wide enough spot, or how we can do it, what vendors we could use, because we would love to keep working on this and moving it forward. We know it's something that the community wants. So we want to work with you guys to do something. We don't want to try and take away from anything that you've already done.
Thank you, Cesar. That's a great idea of collaborating with the Parks Department in advance of putting forth a proposal. Will the next member of the public, please?
We have Jennifer Ratner next.
Good evening, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you? So great presentations from everybody. And a little bit to Stacy's point, I mean, it looks fantastic, and I've been saying that for a long time. But to the point about the design that went into it and the ideas from the community that went into this over a decade ago, even before I became involved in advocacy for the Esplanade, you know, we're here in New York City. We've had a pandemic, and our group and this whole idea is responding to something new and something that is a need and that the community really wants. We only got involved and started forming this committee because so many people came to us and said, we need fitness equipment on the waterfront. There is no fitness equipment for miles and miles along the East River. And this is, to me, and I will say I'm a semi-trained eye, and having discussed it, you know, off the record with parks people, it seems like the perfect location. And we do have a lot of passive recreational space under the Alice Aycock Pavilion, where people can sit, there are benches, there's an entire space right there. And then you're having the whole area, with the trees that may or may not grow, it's going to be for many decades, because they're going to be a lot smaller when they're put in, I assume, a lot younger trees. where people can passively recreate in that area. So, you know, we're New York City here, and we're a group that's willing to work together with the Parks Department and EDC to move it forward. There are still a couple of years before this project is going to be completed, and even at least a year before that section of it is going to be started. So I think we should really think out of the box. This is a pandemic, and this is responding to a pandemic, a need that came out of the pandemic. And I think we should work together now. Like phase 3, we all know that's going to be a long time in the future. You know, many of us on this call won't be around, and I mean like living by the time that gets done. If this project and its time course is any indication.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let's now go to board members, right? Yep. Will, I'll let you do the honors.
Okay. Barbara Rutter, then Felice, then Rita Popper. Barbara, go ahead.
I am muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody. I do want to say a couple of things. One, there has been a need before, like so many things in our city. The pandemic exposed some of the needs rather than creating it. And this would be wonderful. I'm glad we're finally talking about this exercise equipment. I object to where you're talking about putting it because I don't want to wait 2 years for it. Isn't there some place that already exists that would be 6 months before we could put this equipment in and get it ready? You know, we're going to be in this pandemic mode for quite a bit longer before we're totally back to normal. And I wish we didn't have to wait it. But thank you so much for working on it. And we do have a big need for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Barbara.
Well, I'm sorry, Barbara.
I'm the other.
And then next, Felice.
Thanks. I appreciated everybody's presentation and Parks and EDC's response to the proposed changes. I think is very thoughtful, and I appreciate the concerns. I am very supportive of adding fitness equipment along the Esplanade and up through Carl Schurz Park. So I hope that if it doesn't fit in here, that we can find other spots and other ways of fitting it in, because as was pointed out earlier, the fact is that people are finding a way to kind of create makeshift exercise spaces, and maybe some of them are not as safe as others. I know there's frequently TRX equipment hanging off the scaffolding up in the 80s. So there's definitely an interest. People, as we see over there, people are finding a way of creating the space. So I hope we can set up a system that allows people to do it in a safe manner, whether it's, you know, fixed bars that people can be organized to bring their own equipment, or dedicated fitness equipment. I think it's a great idea, and there's certainly a demand for it. And just one other question for phase 3, what's the cost estimate right now of what you would need?
Was that for me, the cost estimate for the equipment?
No, I think that was like for Steve Simon, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I
Broadly.
don't know.
$30 million.
Yeah, that's the last number I heard too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Felice.
Next, actually, we have a member of the public who hasn't spoken on this. Craig Starr. Go ahead and unmute, Craig.
Thank you. I've walked up and down the Esplanade numerous times from Alice Aycock past the, all the way up to 103rd Street. There's nowhere else that supports this equipment. This is the only area that supports this equipment. And I understand, obviously, you put an enormous amount of work into it, as Stacy stated previously. But I think, and it has nothing to do, in my opinion, with the pandemic, because I personally have been exercising outside for 7 years in the local, at John Jay Park. So this community exists prior to the pandemic, but all of a sudden everyone else is just kind of waking up to it. So the fact that it wasn't addressed in previous plans, it just, there are numerous quiet areas or passive areas all up and down the East River on the Esplanade. And if you look at any other area in Manhattan, the West Side parks are completely loaded with ball fields, gymnastic rings up on 103rd Street on the river, all over the place. The Lower East Side has an enormous amount of equipment, as does the West Side. The Upper East Side is the only place on the river that does not have any exercise equipment. But yet we want to put in more passive spaces into the one place where it's available, where it would work. Based on the fact that, well, we've done this work for the last 10 years, but it was an oversight. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Craig. Let's move on. We're going to have to limit the number of people speaking from the public because we are running out of time. We have a couple of more items for the agenda to be considered.
Go ahead, Lowell.
Hi, just thinking out the box on that whole problem with the play equipment. We have vendors that work in the park selling hot dogs, like, and the ramp now is fixed from 59th Street Bridge to handle heavy equipment, heavy trucking. So the way we're doing pools and dumpsters, maybe we could do a workout equipment on a flatbed that shows up a few hours in the morning or afternoon in a spot that's convenient in the Upper East Side, and have a vendor or a non-for-profit, a local business, an MWBE, with American equipment on there. Just thinking outside the box.
I love the idea. Thank you very much, Lowell. The last speaker is Susan, please.
Susan, you lowered your hand. Susan, but I've seen your hand up several times. Do you want to speak still?
Hi, I'm just going to make one last point about this design, as lovely as it is, and I know it has been in place for a long time. And that's an issue because the demographics of this neighborhood have changed dramatically in the past 10 years. We have more families, more kids. The average age has gone down. It's a much different place. It's a place that's more active than passive at this point. And I would like for this new part of Andrew Haswell Green to reflect that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Susan. Stephen, do you have the last word, the last word?
Which Steve are you recognizing?
That's you, Steve Simon from the Parks Department.
Oh, thank you. Actually, there is one last thought I would like to add here, because the Parks Department did make an effort in the past to install fitness equipment in one of the parks on the Upper East Side. It's not that we've ignored this question and that we're not aware of it. Barbara Rudder, I think, would remember that when she was a co-chair of this committee, she and Peggy Price pushed us to install fitness equipment in John Jay Park, and shortly afterwards, we then ended up with a lot of pushback and a demand that we remove the equipment. And we now have a capital project coming up in the next couple of months, which will redo that area and remove the fitness equipment that we installed. Maybe it's now 5 or so years ago. So it would not be accurate to say that the Parks Department has ignored this question of trying to provide outdoor fitness equipment to the Upper East Side. I want to correct the record on that point as well.
Thank you, Steve. Betty Cooper-Wallace has her hand raised. Betty, only because Betty had been a longtime member of Community Board 8 and we're the best of friends. I'd like to unmute Betty, please.
Betty, it's *6 to unmute. *6.
And Betty, keep your remarks to under 2 minutes, please.
Betty, hit *6 to unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you so much, Barry. I couldn't let Steve Simon's comment go without a response to say that equipment that went in John Jay was money that was supposed to be used to have a senior place for people to sit, the only sitting area in a playground. And I'm shocked, Steve, that you bring that up. I'm happy to say that Mr. Silver, Commissioner Silver, and we are ready now in a couple of weeks to begin to do the work in there. We spoke about taking that equipment and putting it, there were places that wanted it, but nothing happened. 2 of the pieces had to be removed because they were dangerous. But that you would bring that up is unbelievable to me. Thank you, Barry, for giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you, Betty. Have a good evening. And I wish everyone a good evening. And we're going to now move to the second item on the agenda. Let me get it straight here.
Third item.
Report from the Muslim Volunteers of New York.
Zahir and Mubin.
And before we leave, I want to thank everyone from EDC and Parks for their participation and their contribution and we call it stick-to-itiveness. Thank you very much, one and all. We'll be in touch going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Barry, thank you so much. My name is Sahar Hussain, and I'm from Muslim Volunteers for New York. And my colleague Mubin Siddiqui is also here. I'm going to be sharing my screen. So bear with me for a minute. We have a presentation that we prepared for you. It basically, let me just start it first.
Okay, listen, it's not true.
Yeah. So Muslim Volunteers for New York, we are the stewards of Rupert Park, which is on 91st and 2nd. And we wanted to just present the different ways that we tried to service the community, the neighbors for Rupert Park last year. Given that the pandemic, stopped us from so many different, the way we used to come in and clean the park and plant for the new season. In the first half of the year of 2020, that was not possible. So just wanted to take you all through the details of what we actually were able to do for the community. Just to give a little bit of a background, Muslim Volunteers for New York is a registered 501c3. It's also on the Charities Bureau. Also, it works in 4 very distinct platforms. One of them is environment stewardship. The other is hunger and poverty alleviation. We also work in health and wellness and education. And environment platform is one of our most, I would say that it's one of our strongest, our most important platform, and through the service at Rupert Park. So there are different ways that we, in the past, we have been working at Rupert Park since 2015. Nancy Ploger, she's our mentor. She, invited us to come and bring our volunteers and work with her. In 2017, New York City Parks made us the stewards of Rupert Park. And so since then, we have been coming with our volunteers, and at a time 165 is usually a number that we bring in. And we come in spring, and then also we bring our volunteers to come and plant and clean the park in fall as well. During the summer months, as you can see over here in the picture, it's a very diverse group that comes with us. We also invite various council members and, borough president, various individuals from the mayor's office, governor's office. The congresswoman also joins us. The assembly member, Dan Quartz, also joins us. So we try to bring in the community together. And it is so exciting that so many of you that are here right now always come in and volunteer with us to clean the park. Barry is always there. Tricia is such a huge supporter. We can never thank you both enough. We have our coordinator, Ashley Kaneki, over here. Ashley, if you're here, then please, if you can wave. She is amazing. She always advises us about the projects. Wes Hamilton, our manager, he always supports in advance as well to the project with various ways, like cleaning it, like the park, for mice, and also for getting the benches power cleaned. And also Christy from Partnership from Parks. So we work with all these different various agencies, and we can never forget Councilmember Ben Kellos, who always supports us and gives us a grant to take care of, our Rupert Park, So what exactly did we do during 2020? We tried to bring in novel ideas to still engage neighbors, all of you, also our members, to Rupert Park. So we had nature series from around the world on social media. Again, the whole idea was to get pictures from all over, from nationally, so that people were still concentrating on green spaces and how to take care of them. This was obviously in the midst of the pandemic, when all of us, we were unable to visit the park in person, but this was something that we thought would revive and excite people. Then the second one was Growing Green, a virtual day at Rupert Park. And I'm going to give a little bit of, through pictures, going to give you a little bit of a, take you through these different projects. And then my colleague Mubin will tell you the physical projects that we did. And that was the Rupert Park cleanup events that we actually had 2 of them last year, and we're planning 1 for May. So again, this is the social media pictures that we had. It was called Nature Series from around the world. We wanted to still engage our members towards Rupert Park. That was our idea behind doing this, the social media campaign. Because when we bring volunteers, obviously so many of you join us, and that excites us so much. But many others also come from as far as Long Island, New Jersey, Westchester, and other parts of the city. So it's really teamwork to take care of this green space. So we had these various gorgeous pictures that were sent to us. The second way that we engaged the community was Going Green, a virtual day at Rupert Park. Since we weren't allowed to come in and work in our park, in Rupert Park, so we decided to have a virtual day. And all of those same activities or the same elements that we provide during our park cleanup days, we try to bring those during this virtual event. In our actual physical events, most of you have visited and worked with us. So you already know that we bring in park rangers so that children can learn how to take care of the environment, how important it is. Also, we bring in a jazz band. It should be fun. Working in the park should be fun and enjoyable and uplifting. So we bring in a jazz band as well. We always have refreshments. We have arts and craft. And obviously this is pre-COVID that we were bringing all those elements in. And so we tried to kind of bring those into this virtual event as well. So we created virtual versions of in-person activities at previous Rupert Park events. And as you can see, Let's Go Green with MB4 and via virtual fun day at Rupert Park. So we had these basic different elements. Over here, as you can see, Paul Moran, he is he did the finale for that evening. He was our pianist. He's a gifted and very, accomplished pianist. He also comes, and he's a neighbor. He lives on the Upper East Side as well. And he comes in to clean the park each time. So it was beautiful that we were bringing in those same individuals who are heavily involved in taking care of our Rupert Park into this virtual event. And they were helping and presenting with us. So we had book reading, and I'm going to go through these. We had the book reading, environmental talk, crafts, and the piano concert. So the book reading was on Curious George Plants a Tree. Again, the whole idea was that, we wanted to provide all of you that element of bringing the park in your own home, in the safety of your own home. And for little kids that are, we have so many little kids that join us for our actual physical events. So we decided to have Curious George Plants a Tree for them, a read aloud. Then we had Nyla, Girl Scout Gold Award recipient, who has worked for her environmental sustainability project. We again wanted to get the youth also involved and to think about how they can take care of our green space. Nyla was amazing. She had done, as you can see, she tackled the issue of single-use plastic bag usage in her community and worked with the council members in Chatham, New Jersey to enact a plastic bag ban. We wanted our kids, our neighbors, our children to think on those lines as well and maybe take this on. So we had her there. And then we brought the arts and craft. I'm sure many of you recognize Hina over here. She's one of my colleagues, and she's amazing, very creative, and she always mans the craft table and at our events. So she brought in this idea of like a craft activity with recycled material. And you can see a picture over there. It was really cute, really nice. And obviously it is again connected to taking care of the environment. And last, the finale was Paul. He played his own composition, and it was a very beautiful evening. So these were the ways that we brought in the virtual. We tried to still, even though we were not allowed to come into the park, to still, if we couldn't go to the park, we thought we would bring the park into each one of our homes. So that's how we did. And then we actually when the parks opened up and New York City Parks allowed us, we actually had 2 events last year where many of you and joined as well, and especially Tricia and Barry, they were there, cleaning the park with us and planting with us. And Rita always also comes to say hello, and many of you others as well. So I'm going to now pass it on to Mubin. She's going to take from here.
Thank you, Sahar. Thank you, Sahar. Again, I'm going to try to keep it brief. I know everyone's tired. Everyone wants to go have dinner. So we will try to make this short and sweet. But I want to again thank Barry, Tricia, and all the members of this CB8 community, Will, etc., for the support. It has played a very big role in our ability to engage the community in all of our events. I want to thank, obviously, the leadership of Commissioner Castro all these years. And I know Steve is here, so thank you very much. Ashley Kaneki as our outreach coordinator has been brilliant. I also want to thank Abby Dembski, who's here on behalf of Ben Kalos. Ben has been a huge support, and we're very grateful to him. He has really funded, except for the very first event when he first got introduced to us, which we did in 2017. He has consistently funded all of the Rupert Park events, initially directly with Partnerships for Parks, and this year he has directed the money directly to us. And like many of you, we have been affected by the pandemic, and obviously the funding is very restricted. So all of your support in a variety of ways, whether it's through the form of volunteers or outreach in your newsletters, helps a great deal. So as Sahar said, the pandemic reshaped the way we did work. We were very happy to finally be able to do an event in August. It was our very first event. We were very nervous to reopen. Parks had said we could have no more than 10 volunteers, and that was very nerve-wracking. We were historically used to bringing anywhere from 100 to 200 volunteers to the park event because these are our main planting and cleanup events twice a year. But with the support of Partnerships for Parks, Kirsty was another big part of it. We did do an event with 10 individuals. Our focus really was more in maintaining the COVID protocol while cleaning the park. We did not focus so much on planting at the time, but I was very surprised at how much we were able to accomplish. And Tricia was right there, elbows in, cleaning, digging, and even getting rid of unwanted rodents. So Sahar, can we go to the next one? Mm-hmm. As you can see, that's the first event. We have very sparsely populated, just a few handful of volunteers, but you have Tricia right there and many of our other volunteers. Everybody's masked, everyone's maintaining the protocol. And the focus was cleaning up what had become this overgrown, wonderful green space. We had kept that image alive by taking photographs prior to going so that people could not forget about Rupert Park. After that, we had a second event, which was our semi-annual October fall planting event. This was also a challenge because we were now told we could increase up to 25 volunteers. The way we worked this was we had 2 shifts of 25 volunteers each. We had a slightly longer length event. The first event in August was only an hour and a half. This event was a traditional 3-hour event. We did not have many of the resources we'd had previously. We did not have the additional bulbs that we get from New Yorkers for Parks for tulips. And I know it's something all of you very much look forward to. But New York City Parks and Partnerships for Parks was kind enough to give us. They promised 1,000 bulbs, and my recollection was they actually ended up giving us 2,000 bulbs. Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong. And they also gave us dozens of, perennials that we could plant. And we're very proud of our neighbors on the Upper East Side, our volunteers, and the CB8 community that came in and helped. And we were able to plant all the bulbs and the plants in that short length of time. We also had the support of our elected officials, whom also we restricted in number because of COVID protocol. As well as obviously all of our other constituents from different boroughs. And so as you can see, again, we maintained the protocol of remaining socially distant. We appreciated the support of all the elected officials. We really appreciated they showed up despite the pandemic. It was a reflection of how important these green spaces are to each of you and each of us. And in a pandemic, it really came home that we really need to guard these spaces. They provided the relief that we needed. Our main challenge now is we do have an event coming up, which is on May 22nd. The New York City Parks has increased the number of volunteers we can have. So we will be having 2 shifts of 50 volunteers each. It's on May 22nd, a Saturday. Hopefully it'll be a bright, sunny day. We hope each of you will participate, bring your families. We will reach out to you for outreach. Rita and other neighbors, we hope you will be there. Barry and Tricia, we really look forward to seeing you. Our big challenge now is to make sure that given the limited resources we have, that we can provide you all the different elements of the events that Sahar mentioned, the live music. And Steve, we will probably be reaching out to you to see if we can get some support in the form of a live band from New York City Parks, as we have historically. We hope that we can have eco-friendly arts and crafts and the urban park ranges there as well. But please, I do encourage you to speak to your neighbors, your community members to come out. I also wanted to thank all the presenters prior to our presentation. You have given us a host of ideas which we have been longing to implement. Barry, not to belabor this point, I'm picking on you again, but please, if we can talk again offline and try to get that coordinated meeting that we had talked about for Rupert Park so we can take it to the next stage. We love to beautify the park and provide a clean and sanitary space for the neighbors, but we do want to take it up a notch. And I think we need to have all the constituents, the other, New York City Parks, PFP, ourselves, the council member, et cetera, all in one room to maybe talk about where we can take it in terms of the next step. But we look forward to this. And after that, we also have a June event planned. It's tentative. It's June 18th is the date. That's a purely community engagement event where we hope that you'll come out and enjoy a nice day of either live music or live arts and crafts or just fun and games for the family. So those really are the current immediate plans. I won't go into it further because time is of the essence. But if anyone has any questions, please let us know.
Thank you very much, Mubin. And we will be talking offline about that.
Sounds great. Thank you, Barry.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move the agenda to the next item unless there are urgent, pressing questions like the one that Rita has. Rita?
Go ahead, Rita.
Barry, do you want to share the good news with?
Oh, no, you go ahead, please.
We have gotten the money to redo the park.
Oh, wow. That's unbelievable.
Oh, you made our night.
That is indeed wonderful news. You have made our day.
Now, I have to tell you how much we appreciate what you do. The bulbs that you plant are beautiful. Unfortunately, on one quadrant of the park, and you know what I'm talking about, that the crocuses came up beautiful purple, and right next to the daffodils that were a gorgeous yellow that lasted one day before they were trampled on because it has become a dog run. And several people have come up to us saying that on a warm day, the aroma from the park, if you will, is really not a good one. But what you have done, you have literally made something that was really quite ugly into something very beautiful. And we're going to sit down. We're going to include you in all the stake people, the stakeholders of parents with children, parents who have elderly parents, elderly senior citizens, because that park is to serve a community. It's not a large park, but we can make it much better. And with your help, it will be spectacular. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your heartwarming words, Rita. It really warms our heart. But we're just delighted at the news. I don't know if you're in a position, Barry, and you are in a position to share what kind of money the park has received. But
yes,
we are ready to roll up our sleeves.
It's not actually money, but I'll let Steve directly answer.
Yeah, I don't think we should jump too far ahead. We're still trying to work out the funding issues, and we are in close contact with Councilmember Kalos. I expect to have a phone meeting with him next week to go to talk about it further. And I am hoping that we're going to have a community meeting to discuss the park in the very near future. So that would be done under the auspices of the Parks Department. That is part of our plan. So I don't think you need to have the offline conversation with Barry. We'll be in touch with you about that. Yeah, and you'll certainly will be invited to that. But chances are we will be seeking. We have some funding, but chances are we will be seeking additional funding because we really would like to make a major impact on this park. And there are current issues there with circulation and a lot of hardscape and a lot of things that date back to maybe an old way of designing parks, that we would like to really change it and make it a much more welcoming and a much greener park, and something that more people can take advantage of. And the council member is interested in expanding the playground space. We would like to try to satisfy that request. So there's a lot to discuss, and we're hoping to have a community meeting in the fairly near future.
Absolutely. That sounds so good. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. But let me be clear. Excuse me. I didn't indicate there was money there. There was a dedication by the park commissioner to redo the park. And they're putting together the plan for that, which will include a community meeting. I hope that clarifies where we are. But it is their intent to make the park new.
We are so delighted
to help in any way we can. So we are just excited that the conversation on this has started. So this is amazing.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll translate into action soon, I hope.
I'm sure it will. Thank you all for joining. Now,
thank you very much.
Rita, have you one more comment?
Yes. Am I on?
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Steve, I want to go on the record right now. I know that Parks has designers, but we're going to actually go to the community, and of course they're the ones who use the park, not the Parks Department. And everyone is going to say what they need. Obviously, there are going to be many people who own dogs who will be coming to that meeting.
Right.
And we have to be prepared. But Steve, thank you very much for putting it on the billboard. Now we have to make it light up.
Good.
Right.
Thank you, Rita.
Well, Rita, as you probably know, our process always is to solicit community input when we start designing projects, and we'll certainly be doing that in this case. We understand that there are a lot of issues, some of which are don't necessarily jibe, that we're going to have to sort out. But this is a challenging park, as you well know, and we'd like to work with you and with the council member to try to figure out how it can be how it can serve the public better than it is now.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to move the agenda to the report from the update from the New York City Parks Department. If Wes is here, do we know?
I didn't see Wes here.
I didn't either. Steve, can you fill in for Wes at this time?
Well, I can try to. There is some further good news. Two of the capital project, all of our capital projects, as you well know, were held up for the last year because of the COVID, the financial crisis brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. And only recently have our capital projects been unpaused, if that's a word. The Parks Department is now dealing with trying to move forward with roughly 400 different capital projects around the city that were in different stages of development. So two of the projects in the Board 8 area, where we were ready to award contracts. We've now followed through. We've awarded the contracts. We've now submitted those contracts to the Controller's Office for registration, which is normally a 30-day process. And then following that, we'll be able to issue what's called an OTW, in order to work for the contractors to begin, within a roughly a 2-week period after that. So we're anticipating that the East River Esplanade project between 68th and 70th Streets will begin first in this 6 to 8 week period, and then shortly afterwards the reconstruction of the sitting area at John Jay Park. Both of those projects were previously reviewed, and the designs were supported by the community board. There are 3 other contracts which that affect the Board 8 area. There's a tree planting contract, which, if it hasn't already gone out for bid, should be going out for bid by the end of April. The Honey Locust Park reconstruction, that one, bids are now due on April the 19th. And so shortly afterwards, we'll see whether or not we have a possible contractor who is willing to match the existing budget. And then at St. Catherine's Park in the playground, we have a plan to replace the safety surface and do some other ancillary work in the playground area. That project is due to go out for bid somewhere in the May to June period. These 400 projects are, as you could appreciate, are being staggered so we don't hit the market all at once, requesting bids for all of these projects and flooding the market. So they're going to be phased in over a period of several months. A certain number of projects per month. So we're talking now about 5 projects in Board 8, which are now moving ahead.
Thank you very much, Steve. It was Mrs. Schneider has a question, and since she's sitting right here, I can't say no.
You should try to say no, Barry.
Okay. You try, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Judy, step closer to the microphone so we can hear you. Judy, we still can't hear you.
Judy. Oh, just very quickly, Steve. I spoke with Tricia either yesterday or this morning. She's very concerned that 79th Street seems to be caving in even more rapidly than was anticipated. So I hope that you folks get that stuff on the agenda as early as you possibly can.
Yeah, we people in our engineering division, I've been in touch with them about it. They don't, at this point, believe it is comparable to the situation we had a few blocks to the south at 76th Street last year, but we are going to be doing some further investigation, and I hope you don't get too anxious if you see that we're lifting up some of the pavers in the very near future to take a look at what's underneath. That doesn't necessarily indicate anything more than we want to investigate and see what it is that's possibly causing this particular erosion.
Great, Steve. I'll tell Trish to watch the video yet tomorrow at this point in the discussion. Thank you. Stacy has her hand up. Stacy.
Hey, Steve, quick question. Can you go over what is happening and when on the Esplanade between 68th and 70th?
I basically this is a project funded by Councilmember Kalos, and the intent is to basically replicate the design and the work that was done to the south by Rockefeller and to the north by the Hospital for Special Surgery. So the pavement, the benches, it's to have a consistent look for the Esplanade, connecting the two sections that were previously done.
Okay, perfect. So you're just talking about like landscaping and cosmetic, not full reconstruction or anything.
Yeah, this particular area does not require the substructural work, or else we wouldn't be able to proceed with this project. This is all topside improvements. So yes, basically landscaping, yes.
Okay, great. And when is that going to take place? Oh, I'm sorry, Barry.
Go ahead.
Well, the construction would begin. I don't have an exact date yet because we're waiting for the registration of the contract at the controller's office. We anticipate that it would begin in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and would then last roughly a year. So we are going to have a problem then with the Esplanade being disrupted at that point for construction during that period.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, you have the last word on this subject. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Steve, I think if I'm not wrong, 2014 did an structural inspection of the Esplanade between 76 and 79. It was declared in fair conditions. In 2018, it was declared is in poor conditions. So why do you have to do the investigation if it's already declared as in poor condition? When in reality, you got to start doing the job.
Well, again, the question. I mean, we know that there are a lot of places along the Esplanade that are not in good condition. The question is the severity and the extent to which we might. The issue right now is whether or not we might suffer a collapse comparable to what happened at 76th Street, and we need to examine the situation underneath in order to see what exactly is causing that problem and whether or not we need to be concerned about a more immediate collapse. We know that area needs to be reconstructed, and there are, but the question is the question right now is how severe is the condition?
Well, I'm going to tell you, if you read your own report, clearly it showed and described that the repair is going to take just only 20 years. So you're expecting to do a repair that just is going to hold 20 years. So
no, we subsequently
right
changed. Well, subsequent to the issuance of that report, and in response to others who also raised that question, we obtained additional funding so that we could extend the useful life of any of the reconstruction work we do along the Esplanade. I don't have the exact details at hand, but that was discussed at one of our East River Esplanade Task Force meetings some time ago. So Marco, I don't think that's the case any longer. That's not our intention to only do repairs anymore. That would last for just 20 years.
That's what it said. That's what it said in your report. I'm
no,
not.
I'm sorry. Again, that's a report that's several years old, which has now been.
No, it was. It was presented.
No back and forth.
It was presented. It was presented in 2019 in February, in the community board. That was the year that was presented this report, and not just reading they say in the report. I'm not trying to contradict what you're saying. And
we have received substantial funding from the mayor since that point, so that we could do. Instead of just doing repairs or replacement of piles, a limited number of them in various locations, we're now planning to do a complete replacement in many of those locations in order to extend the useful life of any of the reconstruction work.
Thank you, Steve. Craig, have you something to add material to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask, since we're talking about that area, for those who may not have seen the news, Hospital for Special Surgery announced that they received a gift to expand the hospital, and it would involve some work that would perhaps impact the Esplanade. So I didn't know, just want to put that on people's radar screens and ask if that's part of the consideration in terms of how things may move forward in that general area.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And what this hospital expansion is going to trigger is additional work that the hospital is going to undertake to improve sections of the Esplanade, going north from 72nd Street, I think maybe as far north as 78th. So there is additional work in the planning stages. Actually, it's probably beyond the planning stage. The hospital is committed to doing it in light of this expansion that they're doing.
Thank you, Steve. Does that answer your question, Craig?
Yeah, I was also otherwise going to make a motion to adjourn. But
I'll second that motion. Is there a motion to adjourn besides? Is there a second to that?
Felice Farber seconded it.
Oh, and Lowell, the whole gang is joining in. Thank you very much. Wait, I see one hand raised from a member of the public who hasn't spoken, so you'll forgive me. Bill, Angeles, do you want to have a 1 minute? The last question, we've already voted to adjourn, so go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Bill.
To join the meeting, that's you. I just want to follow up my request to place on the agenda for St. Catherine Park, which I requested last month. And as you all aware, know that the Blood Center and Longfellow is proposing a 330-foot tower, which will impose a detrimental effect in St. Catherine Park, the only open space. So what is it going to be on the agenda for next month?
We have not addressed the agenda for next month, but I will take it under consideration. Bill, let me point out that the ULURP presentation is being turned over to the community board by the city planning on April 27th, the second Tuesday, and that will be the first time this committee will have heard the proposal from the New York Blood Center. So we look forward to seeing you at that meeting and perhaps at the meeting before.
And that would be addressing the agenda with the after.
Yes, if we're going to be, it'll be on the agenda. Look for the April agenda, and also look for the April agenda of the community board on April 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone have lower everyone's head? Lower everyone's heads. Anyone object to adjourning?
No.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you. Stay well, stay safe.